The indicativo. This is the first. We're going to do the definite modes first. They are 4. And we're going to get to the 3 indefinite. Who's done all of the indicativo in school? Besides him? No way. Who has done 2 tenses of the indicativo? Okay, which ones?
I don't remember. It's been too long.
Okay, it's a survey. It's like a survey because I always want to know what sticks with you from school and what doesn't. All right. There are 8, and they fall neatly into pairs. This is the analytical part. In Latin, you don't fall into pairs at all. They go all over the place. But here they're about to pair up and go on dates, and you're gonna love it. So this is presente. It is a simple tense. Watch what happens. We're going to use a regular ARE verb.
Oh, sorry, it's.
No, it's okay.
I gotta lift it up a little higher.
Okay. I can also do it.
Somebody grab me a score from, or a couple of scores from that pile.
We're going to
Thank you.
pull your avere while we're adjusting.
Or just look at it.
God bless Christina. I would take notebooks and like draw this with different colored pens. She's finally like, please let me do that. So, bless her. Indicativo. What does indicate mean? This is your dito, right? Indicating just means, yeah, it's pointing. It's like, I see a fact. There goes the fact, you know. That's why it's called fact. This is a thing that happens. Right? This is a thing that happens. Presente. The word presente itself is already present. Okay. And this is our verb. Regular ARE. We're going to make it simple. But if I can sing a song,
Plenty of seats.
then the verb cantare has the possibility to be in genre of verb. It can be transitive or intransitive. But because it has the possibility to be transitive, I can sing a song.
Eliminate the man
Right?
spreading.
I'm going to conjugate it with which helper? Who's going to help me? To be or to have? Avere.
No, I'm just saying.
Okay, so have avere in front of you.
I'm giving you grief.
I'm not taking like the 42 minutes it always takes to just conjugate avere. If we need to slow down and do it, we will. I'm just going to cheat. We're going to look at it in the book. Okay? Here, this is what's fun about the analytical part. If you look, you're going to find, look at avere, right? You're going to find that you are less, like I said, you're adding column A to column B. But if column A is the auxiliary, it is doing almost all the work. Column B, the actual
We'll put all this up a little
cantare,
if you don't want to
is
draw
not,
that
it
out.
ain't doing all that much.
We'll put it all up on the.
It helps me.
Okay,
remember
great.
things.
Just
Oh, good.
That's always
Oh, yeah,
another
no,
thing.
good, good. Yeah, so beautiful.
whatever's good.
It's just great.
Wait, when
I'm looking forward
I was in
to
the
it.
shower this morning. No, that should have been pink. Damn it. Things to think about. Okay.
when you
so-
say column A, I mean
Oh,
there's 4
I mean-
columns, so I'm confused.
I mean, the auxiliary and the principal.
Oh, back here.
That's
these
all
two.
I mean. I mean, in a sense,
Avere.
to conjugate an Italian verb, you
This
have to
means-
do less mental
This is a column
legwork
A.
than you would have to conjugate a Latin
Avere and
verb.
SNA. Those
You
are
know,
two
'cause
column
Latin is
A's.
so there were so many more endings, and there was so much more that you could say with a single word. Italian started breaking those things down. It lost some future tenses. It lost some conditional tenses. I mean, some future tenses. It lost the conditional mode in some ways. Things just got streamlined, and what was left, it's like less Naples, more Milan. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like a little cleaner line. So you get an auxiliary verb, which does most of the work, to be or to have. And then you get the principal verb, of which you only need to know, really, 4 8 tenses in the indicative. I start with the indicative because it's the first one we always learn. It's the first thing you teach a baby. And because it has the most tenses, so you can see the symmetry the best. Okay? So all you need to know, you see 8 lines, but you really only need to know 4 things. Because once you know the auxiliary, it's going to do it for you. Watch. Okay. Presente, I'm also not using primarily the names that you got in your Italian textbooks, which now you're telling me you don't remember anyways. I'm using terms that were coined by a wonderful linguist from Pisa. Her name is Maria Luisa Altieri Biaggi. She's fabulous. And you'll see why. So we have canto, which means sing. We can also say I am singing. We're good. So next, if we're going back in the past, what do you say in English?
I sang.
What's even closer to the present than that?
I was singing.
Kinda. What else?
I
if you start
sang.
with, let me say this. For each of the simple tenses, there is a compound partner. And this works in English too. What is a past tense that is the closest to the present that has 2 words? That takes 2 words to say. That's what makes it compound. Simple is 1 word. Compound is more than 1 word.
Have been.
Have some. Have some. Right? So, all you need to know cantato is not in, cantar is not in here. But the past participle of the verb, which is the 3rd thing that Sophie pointed out, right? You have to know, you have canto, then you have cantato, and to conjugate it, you're going to back up to your friend and put, you put the past participle, but you put the present auxiliary. That's how that actually works. Does everybody see that? I mean, you have to sit at school and go, ho cantato, hai cantato, ha cantato, abbiamo cantato, avete cantato, hanno cantato. You had to do that, and that's what's in here. That all of that repetition is in here, and it is absolutely necessary. I just want you to see something about the mechanism. Because, and I want you to see why it has these 2 names. This is the name it has in most textbooks. This is the name it has with Altieri Biaggi. Why? Why would she call it that?
My question is, it's more open-ended. I have, like, it could have been long. I mean, that's my larger question.
Yeah, she calls it that because it is closer to the present. We're gonna, as we go back in time, you'll see why. Yes, in Graziano's book, I think he actually put the imperfecto closer to the present. I was singing. That sounds closer to us in a way, but you're going to see another way to relate these. If you get home and this is too cluttered and complicated, you hate it, toss it. And sing E lo cielo alle stelle, sing whatever you want in imperfecto and put it near the present. But I found that this helps a lot of people to put their minds at rest about the way this myriad, tenses is ordered. You know, you're going to say, So you have presente, and then anterior is
Before.
So it's the before present, which we call the passato prossimo, because prossimo means
In your proximate past.
near. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of undergrads are like, near? Far. Okay. Yeah. All in the present, cantato in the past. Not in the use, but in the rule, in the mechanism. Now, okay, what comes just before that? If you want to describe something, these are absolute tenses. They can stand on their own. They are describing a thing that is happening or a thing that happened.
As a way, I'm thinking of this presente anteriore. I have sung, and I might still be doing it. Does that sort of...
Okay. And it just has to do with we say I have sung, and we don't stop to think about the fact that have, like I have a leaflet in my hand. Have, H-A-V-E, is a present tense verb. We do the same thing, like the English verbal analysis happens in exactly the same way. I have, which is a present tense helping verb, sung, which is the past participle of sing. But we analyze the verb, we crank it the same way. That's why I put it here. So yeah, it may mean I'm still saying, oh, I have already been to the store, which implies, sure, I'm back and I'm probably not going again. But the way that we say it actually involves a present tense verb and a past tense
Kind of where you are now.
put together.
Yeah.
Yeah, where you are now, thinking about where it was, and that makes it closer to the present. And that's why I think they called it lasciate prossimo. Here. Ecco, okay. Ho cantato. Then, if you're telling a story, it was a dark and stormy night, right? They sang around the campfire with the implication they were singing. The singing went on. So the imperfecto describes something continuous, incomplete. What else?
While something was happening.
While something is happening. So something ongoing, right? Yeah. Does anybody know what that is in Italian without looking at it?
Like an example of a verb.
Yeah. What's gonna go here?
So di cantavo.
Cantavo. Esatto. Cantavo. Now, I'm gonna warn you about the slippage that is going to happen everywhere. Because cantavo, sorry, I throw so much at you guys at once, but this confuses a lot of people in old Italian because it was cantavam in Latin, and the B is very soft. It's soft like it is in Spanish. It's so soft that it can melt and fall out. Not necessarily in the first conjugation because is kind of hard, but once you get to E-B-A or E-V-A, credeva, that it can slide right out. And because that first person imperfect was B-A-M, the first, you're looking at cantavo with an O, right? We are so used to clinging to any time we see the letter O. Oh, that's gotta be first person. Yeah, that's me I'm talking about. Like I sang Traviata for years with, and I would say, era così felice. Why does she suddenly slip into talking about herself in the third person? She's not! It's because there used to be an A on the end. So if you said amabam or cantabam, the M is the first thing to go. So you have cantaba. Then the B softens up, right? Cantava. So io cantava was the old form until Manzovi, until like 1840. Goes on forever. It becomes an option a couple hundred years before that, but it doesn't become a rule until like obviously not even Piave has switched over. Ero così felice, non è quello che dice era, right? Even I think even Guastalla, the verb we were doing from 1926-7 the other night, there's still some like it looks like third person because that A used to be there. So what does Amina sing at the end of Sonnambula? Non credea mirarti.
Credeva.
Credevo, we would say, non ti credevo, cioè, non pensavo di vederti così, cioè, we would say it in a bunch of different ways before we would ever say credea. What is the other advantage to a poet of a melted consonant? What does he get back that he would have had to spend?
A syllable.
Yeah. Syllables are worth a lot. A non credeva mira, a non credea mirarti. Ma cosa si presto estinto fiore, capito? He can fit that into the line now. So watch for it. It's everywhere.
Can I ask a follow-up? It was interesting you mentioned Spanish and the V becoming a B, like vamos.
Sí.
But you just said that the B would dissolve into the V, which is the opposite.
In Italian, that's what
They're basically the same letter.
it's the same. They did
Throughout languages.
Yeah.
But
And
Yeah, but
You said
instead of
regardless,
you
it
still
softens
say
and disappears,
estaba.
so-
If I want to talk about myself, don't I still say estaba buscando? Like I was looking for something. Isn't that what I
can.
say? Estaba, and that refers to yo.
Yeah.
Right.
can.
So Italian did that for a long, 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 long time, and only in the last like 150 years, going on 200 now, has it had that O on. We say the equivalent of estabo. Is that? Yeah. So it'll get you sometimes when you're looking at an Eva or an Ea or an Ia. Di chi moria per te. That's Tombe degli avi miei. That's a garbo di Lucia, right? Rispetto al mene ceneri, you bitch, you bitch, you bitch. Of he who died for you. Di chi mori. It's not moria. We're gonna get to that in a minute. It doesn't have two R's. It has one R. And it means moriva, of who was dying for you. Moria. So that's a thing. To look for. A thing that was happening. Imperfecto. So, if we were going to go farther back in the past and say, I was singing, I used to sing, what happens before? How much farther back could that go?
Trapassato prossimo. The trapassato.
Sì, ma come si dice in inglese?
That's like the in between past, technically.
Okay. Uh-huh. How would we say it? This is where English starts to run out of options. Like we don't have the morphological richness. We're like more analytical still, but also flatter. So what do I say? I used to sing that. We're coming up on a relative tense. It depends on something else to prop it up. You know, when you start teaching kids how to write stories, like, I was showering when the phone rang, and you have to make sure that your tenses agree with each other. This is where this starts to happen. I used to sing,
Avevo cantato.
but in English.
I have sung.
Had sung. Right? Yes. And so to get that, what do you crank of your auxiliary? You know that once you're in the past, every other one of these is going to have cantato in it. That's how you get the friends. That's how you get the pairs. So it's going to have something cantato, something sung. So what's the had? Does everybody get that? How you guys doing, Mike? So what do I need? What do I need to put with my cantato?
Didn't you say that?
Yeah, it's auxiliary.
Esatto, right? So if I need the present of my auxiliary here, I need the imperfect of my auxiliary here, and that's avevo. Or if I'm being old-fashioned, I'm going to say
Avevo.
avea or aveva. Avevo cantato. I mean, it sounds terrible to say avevo cantato. It's like too much. Avea cantato. It sounds better, right? Avevo cantato. So does everybody understand why it's normally called trapassato? Because trans, right? Across. It's across the past. It's more past than past. This isn't plus que parfait yet, is it? Which one is this? Help me.
Not yet.
C'est quoi en français? C'est j'avais lu, j'avais eu.
Ouais, c'est le passé.
Ça c'est passé composé.
Ouais, passé
Ça
composé,
c'est
imparfait.
parfait. Ça c'est.
C'est pas plus que parfait.
C'est pas ça,
Non.
Marquis?
It's okay.
I'm trying to get it correct because in French this is pretty. It lines up, but I forgot what to call it in French. Oh, I don't know. But imperfect. So
Le passé antérieur aussi. Ouais, non, c'est non,
Ah.
ça c'est le passé composé. Non, c'est le passé antérieur, c'est le passé antérieur.
Passé antérieur.
On
Voilà.
utilise qu'antérieur pour ça.
Ah, merci. Okay. So antérieur also in French,
Yeah.
right? So imperfect before. So I don't have that. Now. So far, simple compound, simple compound. What are we gonna have?
Simple.
This is the biggest simple of all. This is the biggest simple of all. Why does a poet prefer a simple if he or she can have it to a compound?
Less syllables.
Less to spend. Fewer of my precious syllables to. I need to look that. Oh, wait. I'm going to turn off the Wi-Fi. So tell me things I don't need to know. Okay, right. So this one, right. Sophie immediately called it what the Romans called it in Latin. It is not what the Italians. Right. It is. You know it. We learned it first when I went to MSM. We were in Bob Cowart's class. We were taught the passato remoto first, before any of this stuff.
So useful.
Because Jonathan Schiff said, yes, he said, this is what you're going to see in a libretto. This is the literary tense. This is what happened. This is what you want. Learn this.
It's your storytelling tense.
It's your storytelling tense. It is absolutely what you see in fairy tale. La Principessa andò, whatever. But do you see why in Latin it's called perfect? Because facere, which gives us ficere, which gives us fecto, like fecto. It's a lot like that. Perfect is something that is done through and through. Per means through. It's something that's completely done. Remoto makes it seem what?
Just
Far. Remote.
Long ago and far away.
Long ago and far away. It isn't necessarily long ago and far away. Especially if you live in Palermo, you might say, stamattina andai al mercato. The farther south you go, the more people still use the passato remoto as just another conversational tense. So it only means that the thing happened, and you don't need to talk about it that much. You don't need to use two words to say it where one will do. And the one usually sounds better. And the passato remoto has this infinite, gorgeous variety because of all those irregulars that slid through that third conjugation. So when we get to some of these, it's the participio passato and the passato remoto, all of those like single word tenses that are So I keep harping on that because I think when I was coming through conservatory, we just felt it was a burden to have to memorize irregulars, and you get lists. Every book you have has a list of irregulars. And you think, big V, how many V's does it have? How many S's does it have? Does it end with I? But if you have the luxury of time to spend with your libretto and you can just appreciate the variety, it will make you happy. So, what would that be? It's the other part of the banner in your book. Each of those verbs. So if you go back to like amare and you know that it's regular.
I sang.
I sang! Yes. So if you're looking at amare, you got that second part of it. What would that be for cantai? Which I mean for cantare. Which is also regular.
Just put it up.
There it is. There it is. There it is.
So that's why that is in the banner.
Is that? Do you see why the banner now? Because if you know the first part, you know the passato remoto or the perfecto, and you know the past participle, you can do all the things that the book needs to do. Yeah. So, I said, right? Shout them out to me in English.
I say.
I have
have
sung.
I was singing.
I had
sung.
sung. I
I
sang.
sang.
Now what?
I had some.
I had sang? I know. I had sung.
Sung.
I had
I had sung.
But it's sad, right?
What had
Sad.
happened was.
What had happened?
What had happened?
What had have happened? Right? People do stuff. But see,
Yeah, it's not.
it's
that's not
sad.
right.
It's
That's
sad.
the word.
It's just it's what we got. But so what is it in Italian?
Avere.
Avere, check your
perfect form
avere.
of avere
The perfect.
plus-
See what I mean?
plus
All
the
you gotta do
Column
is this
A.
is gonna, what do you think this is gonna be called?
But the perfect, I don't know what they call it.
What do you think?
Perfetto
Look, guys, come
anteriore.
on.
Presente, presente
Oh.
anteriore. Imperfetto, imperfetto anteriore. Perfetto.
Inferiore.
Grazie, professoressa Altieri.
Devo cantare?
Yes.
Oh.
No,
Where is
because
that one?
what do?
But cantare.
You get you have your simple, and to make your
Oh,
compound,
no.
you
Yeah.
use
Keep the
this form of the
Just
auxiliary.
guessing. Bad idea.
Then you have your simple, and then you use your same form of the auxiliary. Then you have your simple, and you use your same form of the auxiliary, which is in the banner. So what do I
Oh,
need?
God.
What do I need to make it crank? She's looking at me like, why did I get up?
the
Tense.
The
perfect
perfect
tense
tense
of
auxiliary.
auxiliary. perfect perfect.
Help me,
Plus a
somebody.
participle.
Yeah.
It's not. It's on the page. I swear to God, it's really there in the banner. You are not conjugating. Do you understand? You're not conjugating cantare. You're conjugating avere with new
Right.
parts of
Always,
cantare.
always,
That's
yeah.
all it is.
There it is.
Oh.
See,
See, easier than you.
the
So much.
column B doesn't change.
Column B does not
No,
change.
that's not.
Once you know essere and avere, and you know some like
So
things about how to recognize the.
column A is the crank.
That's it. That's it. I don't have, as you can see, I don't have a particularly analytical mind. It took me a lot of years to go, oh, they like each other. But once you get it, it will start to be easier not only to produce the conjugations, which I did for a lot of years, like sitting on my bed in a rented house in a little town in Italy when I could have been drinking with my friends. Or sometimes when I was drinking.
Yeah.
Like you have the workbook under the table, right? So I did a lot of that production, but your main task, obviously, is recognition,
Deduction.
is deduction, is when you see the libretto, you're like, oh, these are separated because Latin, because poetry, because there's the participle. So is there a helper? Is there a helper? If there's not a helper, then the participle might be an adjective. Oh, there's the helper. Canta bene. That's your job. Your job is going to be easier when you realize how these fit.
So often, especially in this libretto, these helping verbs, the column A and the main verb, are separated by acres
Right,
and
they're like 2 lines away.
acres of text. Sometimes 2.5, 3 lines. It's like beginning of one and the end of the third line. And if
Because
you sort of
Olympic
understand that and
gymnastics,
can
because
accept
why not?
that, you can go looking for both halves and go, oh, these two belong together. And when you do your word salad, you can go, oh, okay, this is the verb that I have to deduce.
Right. And ahimè, because it's not Latin, those pieces get blown apart
Yeah.
even farther. You know. Yeah. So, eti cantato, had sung. So you have had sung, too bad. But you can see the added dimension of this. Right? When we were doing amare one time, it was just like, ebbi amato. Like, maybe I never loved him at all. You know, it just seems so far in the past. You hardly ever see it. You hardly ever see it. The saddest passato remoto. Find me a sadder one because I've been stuck on this one for years. Like the best storytelling tense. There is such a thing as the imperfecto storico. Sì, no. But when Cavaradossi is about to die, right? He's up and he says, how does he describe the scene when Tosca comes in? Famous aria, tenors. Oh, come on. Recondita Armonia is Act 1. What is he singing? He's in jail. He's waiting.
Something with the stars.
Oh, you early. What?
E
luceva le stelle. E luceva le stelle.
Lucevano.
Lucevano le stelle. Right, because Tosca says in Visita, no, I'm skipping around. He says, he launches the aria with, and the stars were shining. Right? And every single line that follows on that, mi cadea fra le braccia, volezava la terra, like everything he says, la luce, la 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 la, And we would say cadeva, he says cadea fra le braccia, right? So he's still using that ability to melt the consonant, to melt your word, right? But it does. That is why that aria is so hypnotic. Even people who don't know the language know that a story is being told. Layer upon layer is being laid of fragrances and stars and stuff like that. And the imperfect really helps with that. If anybody's read Barthes, Roland Barthes, I have in Italian, Frammenti di un discorso amoroso, it's fragments of a lover's discourse, I think, or a lover's discourse fragments in English. It's mostly about Werther, but there's a fabulous chapter that starts E luceva le stelle, and that got me very interested in this tense as a storytelling tense. Anyway, and then I always say the saddest, the most ridiculous is in the same opera. What's Tosca's big aria? What does she say?
I saw art.
No?
Mm-mm.
Hey, no.
Vici.
Non vidi. What's the aria, people?
Vici
Vici d'arte! Vici d'arte. I lived
art.
for art.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh, for Christ.
From art.
I lived of art. Vici! She's
It's done.
already
It's
talking
done.
about herself.
In the past
Done!
tense.
Yeah.
For fuck's sake.
Yeah, we can.
But, right, I have a hard time with this aria. Like, in the theater, I have a hard time with this aria. Well, because it's like, I may be very naive as a listener. I don't know, but there's always something about when she goes to the window, or she looks at him, or she doesn't look at him, or whatever, and she won't see the knife for a couple more minutes, but she goes, Vici d'arte. It suddenly seems so performative to me. Because if the character is such an actress, why is she not acting now? Like, the fact that she uses that verb tense always makes me slightly doubt that this isn't a strategy. It always makes me wonder, like, are you really that much of a drama queen if that's what you're saying right now? Okay, maybe you are. Maybe you are. You know, or maybe it really is the poetic trick that he needs that line to be that length, and so he needs to choose vici instead of vissuto, which isn't particularly glamorous, right? Anyway, these are all things we think about when we have all our lives. Thank goodness to have this music in front of us. The two really, really devastating and kind of most visible, most popular instances of this passato remoto of a character referring to him or herself or to a relationship, to me, are both in Verdi. What's the last thing Otello says? It's one of the last things. He says, un bacio ancora, la la la. But he says, Otello fu.
It's done.
It's done. My Hindu mother-in-law says, he is no more. They don't say the verb to die. Her sect. I don't know if all Hindus do this, but this is what I hear her do.